Welcome, everyone, to Champion Your Life with me, Leighanne Champion. This is where we get to reflect, refine, and reboot your one precious life. In this space, we take a deeper look at what's holding you back. Maybe you want to show up differently for the people in your life. Maybe you're struggling with your emotional well-being. Maybe you feel as though something's missing and you want to get excited about your future. There's some good news. You can shift your perspective and begin to walk through the world in new, refreshing ways. I am a certified life and well-being coach who was called to create this show as a means to facilitate a journey of personal development. You have the power to change. Your life is precious. Don't waste another minute feeling unfulfilled. Champion Your Life starts now. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Champion Your Life with me, Leighanne Champion. It's great to be with you all again, working towards living our best lives together. We only have this one precious life, so I love that you're tuning in and taking your emotional health and well-being seriously. Whether you're listening to me live right now or much later on different locations that people tune in from around the globe, I'm just glad you're here. Today, we're going to be discussing buffering, and it's a term that might be new to you, especially in the context of living our best lives. But buffering is a term that I learned from one of my mentor coaches to explain what we do as humans to avoid experiencing our lives. I wonder what the world would look like if we didn't indulge in buffering, or what I like to call the overs. This is the term I use for overeating or over drinking or overspending or over people pleasing, overthinking, I'm good at that one, overworking, over Instagram, you get it. Everyone has their own overs. There's actually a lot of overs out there. And I'd love it if you shoot me over in the chat box that you might be dealing with. I'm sure you have a couple. But imagine if we would be willing to live a life believing that less pleasure is the key, and that it would open us up to being able to focus on the things that we really want to do with our lives, that we yearn for. I'm hoping that sounds intriguing, because that's what we're going to talk about today. But truthfully, often we're reluctant to face the truth of what's going on in our lives because we just don't want to experience any negative emotion, right? We talked about this in our episode of the 50-50. Lots of us think we're entitled to feel happy all the time, and to make things more challenging is that we're constantly bombarded in our culture with ways to feel pleasure. Just to be clear, though, I want to go back to the definition so you're tracking with me. Buffering is when we use external things to change how we feel emotionally. And look, sometimes we don't even have the energy to face the truth of what is going on in our lives because we just don't want to experience, again, any negative emotion, right? So many of us, myself included, have used buffering as a way of tolerating things that aren't acceptable in our lives. It's fascinating. But often, instead of changing the unacceptable, instead of working on it, instead of deciding to make it better, we decide to buffer. We go for that instant pleasure to numb our pain. And the big question for all of us is to ask ourselves, in our efforts to truly live an authentic and productive life, are we willing to live a life that doesn't include all these forms of buffering? I think for many years of my life, I believed that less pleasure meant less fun. But through the years, I've realized that actually less is in fact more fun. I can actually now go out, go to a party or out to dinner, and I don't need to overeat or overdrink. I'm just more present. And these days, very appreciative of being in the moment. But here's what's really hard for us is that we're constantly bombarded with suggestions, right, of ways to feel pleasure. Oh my goodness, marketing techniques have got our number. America runs on Duncan. Well, maybe these days that's true. And I remember from my childhood, my dad loved finger licking good. That one really got him. He used to celebrate everything with Kentucky Fried Chicken. But most everything in our world now is a subliminal message, right? We're on our phones, we're scroll, swipe, click, buy. Right? It just happens. There is a lot of money made on peddling pleasure. Many organizations and corporations take advantage of that by not just playing to our natural inclination to seek pleasure, but they make it twice as bad by selling us things that are concentrated pleasure or pleasure in heavy doses. We decide these things are almost as important as survival because the dopamine hit we get from them becomes the most important thing. For example, we go to dinner, we want that glass of wine, and that concentrated hit of dopamine from the grapes makes us want another. But our brains are not meant to process so much so quickly. And this is what I think people don't understand. That overstimulation of dopamine will eventually make our brains think we need that wine for our survival. And then we end up drinking at our own expense. And we have the exact same outcomes from too much sugar, right? Keep the chocolate away from me. Flour, right? Let's face it. And the abundance of drugs that are around that are so dangerous and addicting. And then what happens? The unwanted cycle begins, right? The more we buy, the more we spend, the more we eat, the more uncomfortable we feel, the more we don't exercise, the more we watch Netflix. And then we're on the couch, usually with chips. It becomes a habit issue in our lives because experiencing pleasure just makes us want to experience more pleasure. Right? And then somehow weirdly, we feel entitled to having pleasure all the time. In fact, it becomes our norm, right? Because it's always available. But here's the thing. Have you ever considered the possibility that life could be better, could be sweeter if we didn't have all those false pleasures, all those ways to buffer? Think about it. There is so much value to less food, to not overworking, to not buying so much, whatever your over is. Have you ever considered that giving them up would make us more available to experience the real pleasures in life? Constraining your spending would give you more money for the things that are really big and important. In fact, it gives us freedom and security. Constraining your eating allows you to get outside, enjoy nature, take that walk that will make you feel energized, right? Getting off the couch from binge watching, I don't know, The Office for the third time might inspire you to reach out to an old friend or take that class online that you've been putting off. You might be thinking to yourself, geez, Leighanne, kind of killjoy here. What's left? Hear me out. So, what does remain when you stop buffering? What does your life look like without all the overs? Well, your world might look like becoming more productive, setting goals, and you might feel better in a myriad of ways because you aren't putting things in your body that slow you down. And you could get excited about your life, your potential. Life is complex for sure. And my goodness, this past year has been a doozy. And as we discussed, life is full of the 50-50 50% good, 50% hard. At least we know in our hearts, something like that, because God told us in this world we will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. Oh, I see some fun in my chat box here. Let's see what you guys have to say. I'm over renovating. That can be a rabbit hole for sure. Over shopping. Yeah, so real. Did I really need that dress or that vase from Home Goods? Let's see. Overreact. That's really interesting. At first, one might not think that's a buffer, but that totally could be, especially if you're doing that so that you don't have to look at your relationships or other things that are going on in your life. That's really, really good. How do I know if I'm buffering for sure? For example, I do watch a lot of Netflix. Great question. I'm glad you asked me that. Sometimes it's not even a thing. It's not even a problem. We all have things we love to watch on TV, for goodness sakes. But the way you know if you're buffering is if there is a negative consequence on the back end, or if it somehow is giving you a negative impact. For example, if you're just scrolling away on your phone and ignoring the rest of your life, it could be a problem. Or if you're just ignoring, paying your bills, sitting down and actually paying the bills by going out shopping or shopping online, that's a serious disconnect, right? That leads to real consequences at the end of the month. So I hope you can see what I'm talking about by the negative impact. So many of these behaviors we do unconsciously. Is buffering sort of like escapism? Yes, spot on. This is what we humans do when we don't want to face the music. We're going to go for a quick break now. You are listening to Champion Your Life with me, Leighanne Champion. We are discussing buffering and all of the overs that can get us in trouble. Stay tuned though. We'll be right back. We are getting real. We're talking about buffering and overing and the impact that it can have on our lives. I just wanted to read you this comment that came in because I think it was really powerful. It says, "This made me think of my mother and how she hid from the world by reading novels. She totally missed our childhoods by escaping into other worlds. So sad, really, what she missed out on, but totally understandable if the world was such a painful place for her that reading made her feel better." Wow. That's so profound. Because mostly likely in her mind, she was just reading, right? But the buffering was real because of the impact that it had on you, that you felt neglected. This is such a deeper example, but I really, really thank you for sharing that, because I don't think any of us want to buffer and miss all that is precious and important within our families. This reminded me of a case study I read of a woman who was struggling with, I think it was perfectionism, but the way that it showed up as buffering in her life was by the over planning of everything. She kept, so busy and kept her family so busy. I mean, sometimes you can't help it, the soccer, the rehearsals, the tutors, that she couldn't allow herself, right, to slow down and be present and connect with her family. It was that constant schedule that had a negative impact. It was difficult for her to just be. And unfortunately, I think we've all seen examples of people who might seem to us as if they're buffering their whole way through their lives. And some may not even realize that's what they're doing, which is really tragic. But if we could have all those pleasures with no consequences, nobody would care, right? Let's face it, there are consequences. Buffering does cause pain. And it's important to understand that buffering only provides temporary relief from negative emotion. We can't keep so busy that we're just running, right, from our own lives. Oh, that's so interesting. But I think we can all think back to moments where it felt like this was exactly what we were doing, or perhaps it's happening to you right now. Just so human. But what I really want to do right now, I want you to think for a moment what you do when you're bored. I think being bored is actually an amazing opportunity. We can either go inside and access our mind, or we can escape and ignore what is going on. When you don't like the content of your own mind, when you don't like hearing your own thoughts, you're like, I am out of here, right? But listen, when you start using those moments when you're bored to access yourself and listen to your thoughts and get to know yourself, you may decide that you're ready to change. You might get that aha. When you're bored, your mind and its contents reveal itself to you. And when your life is revealed to you, you can determine whether you like it or not, right? And if you're constantly being revealed, the contents of your mind and your life that you don't like, and you just continue to buffer and ignore, it's not going to get better, right? The more present you are with your life, the more authority you get over it. The more present you are with your life, the more authority you get over it. And conversely, the more you escape your life, the less power you have over it. But when you access yourself when you're bored and you find out what you're capable of and what your true desires are, when we take away all those buffers, right, and pursue well-being, we come out so much better on the other side. When we dive into the coaching journey, we start finding the causes of our unhappiness, and then the shift can occur. We begin to make that shift from unconscious and often destructive behavior, right, to awareness on what we're creating in our lives. And this is beautiful and sustainable. And when you give up your buffers, really, frankly, you'll still feel it. You'll still get upset, but you're going to deal with it differently. When you trade the false pleasures of your life for well-being, you're going to gain confidence. And that confidence begets more confidence, which begets more confidence. And that is a beautiful thing. The more confidence we have, the more empowered we feel, the more well-being we have, the more we have to give and just offer the world, especially within our families and our all important relationships. And that's the whole point, you guys. When we're functioning from a place like this, we're able to be the best versions of ourselves. And there was one last interesting thing that I wanted to tell you. When we are in that pleasure-seeking mode, it's so interesting. We cannot give. We get in this kind of take mentality. I want to eat, I want to drink, I want to buy. We're really quite self-absorbed. We're caught in a false desire, kind of like a tailspin that we never can satisfy. So if you're trying to escape, you are always in a never-ending cycle, never giving, only taking. And what did God say to us? It's more blessed to give than receive. Isn't it ironic how much we can miss the mark in these moments? So what I want you to do, I just want you to believe and consider, just consider that our lives without buffering isn't just tolerable. It could possibly be way better. Imagine never having it again, whatever that thing is, whatever it is that's causing a true negative consequence in your life, how might you feel? You might feel a little bit of withdrawal, right? You might feel a little bit of deprivation, but ultimately, you'll finally feel the emotion you're trying so desperately to escape. And that emotion has some really, really valuable information for you. It's trying to tell you something. It's telling you what you're thinking. It's telling you what you're believing. It's telling you how you're showing up in the world. And if you're constantly trying to avoid yourself, you're missing the authenticity of your own precious life. I read this great quote by Martha Beck, and what she said was, the way to determine if you should go after a dream or not is not the possibility of failure, but the depth of your desire. The way to determine if you should go after a dream or not is not the possibility of failure, but the depth of your desire. Powerful quote, right? When you don't access what you truly want, and you hack your brain by using or buffering or overs or false pleasures, you miss out on you. You miss out on what you have to offer. The truth is that none of us are here to live small lives. Not you, not me, not anyone. In fact, describing a life as small or big really kind of misses the point. But I believe that all of our souls have these huge callings. And when we live out our calling from a place of truth, from a place of integrity, and from a place of love, our souls will have tremendous impact. But when we hide from our lives, when we buffer, when we do all of the overs, we are missing our next assignment. The next time your mind tells you that your life is small and unimportant, I want you to push back against that hard. I want you to allow your soul to just burst forth. See and recognize the love that you have as a source of power and goodness in the world. What I've come to know after a few decades on this earth is that when you see another human being for who they are and you love them and you're present, that is the greatest gift you can ever give another human being. We are all here to live beyond labels, beyond our deepest fears. We are all here for a reason. So we got to get living in the healthiest way possible. As we look forward to a hopeful new reality, may we each take a moment to look first and foremost at our lives. How are we doing? Are we taking advantage of the gifts that God has given us? Are we open? Are we ready? Are our hands outstretched? These are the questions each of us must ask ourselves, because we're not meant to lead small lives. This is the time. This is your moment. No time for buffering, false pleasures, or all the overings. Our world needs some help. It needs you. It needs love. It needs your soul to help clean up the mess, to help light up the sky once again. Whew, getting all emotional here. All right, you've been listening to Champion Your Life with me, Leighanne Champion. I'm really glad you joined me today. Be sure to listen to this again if something hit a chord. Share this information with someone you love. I'll be back, but until then, Godspeed. Thank you for listening to Champion Your Life with me,
Leighanne Champion on transformationtalkradio.com. To find out more about me and my coaching platform, visit championyourlife.com. That's championyourlife.com. You have one precious life. Let's live it to your fullest potential. Let's go. Let's do this together. See you next time.